Hi, I'm Chuck Colson with this week's 2-minute warning. President Obama made headlines across the world in recent weeks with his nuclear summit held in Washington. The summit came on the heels of his negotiations with the Russians to reduce each country's nuclear stockpile. As the Washington Post reported, by the end of the conference, the president had persuaded 46 other nations to agree to put the world's nuclear material beyond the reach of terrorists within 4 years. Reducing the number of nuclear weapons and making sure terrorists don't get materials to make a nuclear bomb, these are laudable and important goals. But I'm a little uneasy about the euphoria over the president's nuclear policies. I think in some respects they represent a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of human beings and ultimately the world we live in. First, while the president did indeed raise awareness about the need to keep nuclear materials out of the hands of terrorists, that's good. At the end of the day, all the nuclear summit produced was a voluntary agreement among 47 governments. Now this is progress, but nothing to hang your head on. I can't help but think of Ronald Reagan's famous remark about his approach with the Soviets when it came to arms talks. Trust, but verify. We can't trust any nation will abide by a treaty or agreement unless we're able to verify they're complying. We live in a world, after all, where terrorists are actively seeking nuclear materials so they can use them on us. And we cannot underestimate the evil of their intentions, nor can we overestimate the ability or even the desire of some nations to keep their nuclear materials out of the hands of terrorists. Secondly, I'm very concerned, as I discussed on Breakpoint recently, over the Obama administration's recently released Nuclear Posture Review. That's the document that spells out how our nation will or will not use nuclear weapons. In that document, the president explicitly stated that the U.S. will not use nuclear weapons against countries that do not possess nuclear weapons and that also comply with non-proliferation agreements. But how would we respond if a country, let's say with no nukes, launched a massive biological or chemical attack on us? Well, the administration specifically said we wouldn't use nuclear weapons against such countries. But why not? A biological attack would be as devastating as a nuclear attack. I know from my experience in the White House, our ability to respond was the only effective deterrent to Soviet ambitions. Are tyrants and terrorists today any less ambitious than the Soviets were? Well, I know something about how deterrence works. I was party to many decisions in the Nixon White House which maintained the necessary balance to discourage our enemies from a first strike. Once a nation voluntarily renounces in advance the option to strike back if attacked, there is no deterrence. I'm afraid the Obama administration's announced approach is naive at best and fundamentally flawed because it fails to take into account the human capacity for evil, what we Christians call the fallen nature of man. Men with evil intentions will seek to act in evil ways unless they are restrained. Promising not to use nuclear weapons against them is no restraint. So while I applaud the president's aims, I must say that in this dangerous world filled with fallen, dangerous people, it is folly to take a credible deterrent off the table. That's this week's 2-minute warning. I'm Chuck Colson.